If you've ever lost everything in a single day, you'll understand why my story isn't about anger. It isn't even about revenge. It's about patience. About waiting while everyone points fingers at you, while they whisper behind your back, while your whole life burns down in front of you. And then, watching them set fire to themselves with the very matches they used against you. I used to believe my family was unshakable. My husband, Daniel, our 2 kids, and me, we were the quiet ones in a small suburban town. The kind of family that kept the lawn trimmed, waved at neighbors on Sunday mornings, and kept arguments behind closed doors. I thought stability was my inheritance, but I was wrong. It started small. My husband's sister, Lydia, always had a smile that never reached her eyes. She was the type who thrived on control, the kind of woman who never forgave me for stealing her brother's attention. At family gatherings, she'd make comments like, "You're lucky Dan settled for simple," or "Don't you think kids deserve someone more stable raising them?" I laughed it off, chalking it up to her bitterness. But, late at night, in the quiet of my bedroom, I'd lie awake imagining her words as arrows, piercing at the foundations of my home. Was I really inadequate? Did everyone see me the way she said? I didn't realize those words were rehearsals for something much worse. When my father passed away, he left me a modest inheritance. Nothing extravagant, enough to pay off debts, put some aside for the kids, maybe even renovate the house. Daniel's family hated that, because suddenly I wasn't the fragile wife depending on them. I was independent. And independence, to people like Lydia and her parents, is dangerous. One night, after a heated dinner, I overheard her whispering with Daniel in the kitchen. I wasn't supposed to hear it. But sometimes, life hands you truths when you least expect them. Her voice was sharp. "She doesn't deserve them. You know she's unstable. We could take custody, Dan. With my friend at the courthouse? It wouldn't be hard." I froze, my heart hammered against my ribs like a frantic prisoner. Is this really happening? I pressed my back against the wall, willing my body to stay still, willing the floor not to swallow me whole. At first, I told myself I misheard, that no one, not even Lydia, would suggest stealing a mother's children just to feel powerful. But days turned into weeks, and small signs piled up. Daniel coming home late, his parents visiting more often, always watching me with that patronizing concern like I was a ticking bomb. My anxiety became constant, gnawing at every thought. Are they plotting now? Will I see my kids tonight? Then it happened. On a Thursday morning, social services knocked on my door. Anonymous reports had been filed. Neglect, emotional instability, even hints of abuse. Lies, carefully crafted. They had evidence too. Photographs of a messy kitchen taken while I was sick. Records of me picking up my kids late from school one time. Statements from neighbors who'd been fed stories about me being unwell. It was a script, and I was cast as the villain. The court hearings were a blur. Every time I spoke, Lydia's Liori twisted my words. Every time I cried, they said it was proof of emotional instability. Daniel didn't defend me. He just sat there, eyes down, as his family painted me as unfit. I remember sitting in that cold courtroom, hands clenched around the wooden armrests, wondering if I'd ever see my children's faces again. I whispered to myself, I have to survive this. I have to survive. And the judge? He was an old family friend of Lydia's father. I didn't stand a chance. In the end, they won. Custody was stripped. My children, my entire world, were handed over to a family that had never once tucked them into bed, kissed their scraped knees, or held them during nightmares. I was allowed supervised visitation, like some stranger who needed monitoring. I'll never forget the look in my son's eyes when they took him from me. Confused, scared, and my daughter, she kept reaching for me until Lydia pulled her hand away. I died that day. Not physically, but everything I believed in, trust, family, justice, was buried. And yet, I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I signed the papers. I kept my head down. Everyone thought I was broken. That was their mistake. Because while they were celebrating their victory, I was quietly building mine. For the next 3 years, I lived small. I moved into a modest apartment, worked 2 jobs, and obeyed every rule the court set. Supervised visits? I never missed one. Mandatory counseling? I went to every session. Drug tests? Clean, every single time. On the surface, I was docile, defeated, but underneath I was documenting everything. Every time Lydia raised her voice at the kids during drop-offs. Every time Daniel forgot appointments. Every time their family contradicted themselves in paperwork. I filed records, transcripts, and reports. I spoke little, but I listened to everything. Night after night, I replayed the moments in my mind. I felt the sharp ache of absence when their beds were empty, the silence where laughter should have been. I let myself cry, not to show weakness to anyone, but to remind myself why I was doing this. For them. I memorized schedules, routines, habits. I took photographs during visits, quietly noting discrepancies. I built a timeline, a web of facts connecting every lie, every manipulation, every small injustice. My apartment was cluttered with binders and notebooks, each page a step toward reclaiming my life. Every little detail mattered. The exact time Daniel was late, the temperature in the basement where my children were kept, the tone of Lydia's voice when she snapped at them. Then came the night that changed everything. My daughter, now old enough to use email, sent me a message from her school computer. Short. Frantic. Mom, Aunt Lydia makes us stay in the basement when her friends come over. She says we can't tell Dad. Please don't be mad. Basement. Friends. Secrets. I forwarded the message to myself, then printed a copy and tucked it into my growing binder of evidence. That was the moment the cold part of me, the part that had been waiting, snapped into focus. I stopped being patient. I started being surgical. I hired a private investigator with every cent I had saved. He uncovered what I already suspected. Lydia and her parents weren't saints. They'd been embezzling church donations, hiding unpaid taxes, even forging documents to claim extra childcare funds. And Daniel? He wasn't just complicit. He was drowning in gambling debts, using my inheritance, the one they fought so hard to control, to cover his losses. I didn't scream, I didn't confront them, I waited. I spent nights imagining the confrontation in court, rehearsing every word, predicting their defenses, fortifying my calm. I reviewed evidence repeatedly, imagining how it would land when shown to people who actually mattered. Every evening ended with me whispering to myself, soon, I'll bring them down, quietly, carefully, perfectly. Until one Sunday morning, our small town's church was its heart. Everyone attended, everyone listened. And Lydia, of course, loved parading her perfect family in the front row. That morning, I walked in with my binder pressed against my chest. People whispered. They weren't used to seeing me anymore. I waited until the pastor asked if anyone wanted to share testimony. My hand went up. The silence was suffocating as I walked to the front. My voice didn't shake. I felt every eye on me, and yet for the first time in years, I felt unbreakable. This is for them. This is for my children. I want to share a story, I began. Not about faith, about lies. And I opened the binder. Emails, bank statements, tax records, photographs, testimonies, even my daughter's note. One by one, I laid them bare in front of the congregation. People gasped. I didn't embellish. I didn't rant. I just read facts. Cold, undeniable facts. I described the nights my children were forced to sleep on couches, the friends they weren't allowed to see, the money stolen from charitable causes, the falsified documents, the negligence, the manipulation. The words themselves weren't loud, but the weight of truth is always heavier than any lie. I explained how I had painstakingly documented everything, how I had pieced together years of manipulation into an unbreakable chain of evidence. I saw disbelief ripple across the faces of neighbors who had trusted Lydia's perfect image. When I finished, the room was silent. All eyes turned to Lydia, to Daniel, to their parents. The pastor cleared his throat, but it was too late. The damage was done. By the end of the week, investigations had begun. Child Services reopened the custody case. Financial Crimes Division froze Lydia's accounts. Daniel's gambling debts became public knowledge. Their perfect reputation crumbled in real time. Neighbors stopped waving. Employers cut ties. Friends vanished. They had stolen my children with lies. I destroyed their empire with truth. Months later, the court reversed its decision. My children came home. The look in my daughter's eyes when she walked back into my house wasn't confused anymore. It was relief. Safety. I prepared our home differently this time. Little traditions returned: Saturday pancakes, bedtime stories, laughter echoing down the hallway. I savored every small moment, every hug, every whispered "I love you." I'd lost years, but I gained clarity. Nothing is more powerful than a mother's persistence. I documented these moments too, in a quiet journal, not for evidence, but as proof to myself that the darkness had ended. I watched my children sleep, feeling the warmth return to my chest like sunlight through broken windows. As for Lydia and Daniel, they had to sell their home, buried in debt and legal fees. They became pariahs in the very town they once ruled. I didn't gloat. I didn't even speak to them, because revenge doesn't always need fire or screaming. Sometimes it's quiet, cold. A mother holding her children again while the people who betrayed her choke on their own poison. And that's the lesson. They thought lies could bury me, but all lies do is wait for the truth to dig them back up.